Hey fellow brain pickers, how would you like to get featured as a guest on multiple podcast shows like this one and get massive exposure? GetFeatured.media will get you featured on targeted shows. They'll design a custom bio page, pitch you to the hosts, schedule a time, prepare you for the shows, and promote you so you get even more brand exposure. Head over to GetFeatured.media to get major publicity for your brand.
Welcome to the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast, where successful entrepreneurs get their brains picked so you can apply mindset tricks and game-changing tactics that will help you become unstoppable. Now, here's your host, Daniel Gefen.
Hi fellow brain pickers, and welcome to episode 59 of Can I Pick Your Brain? Now, before we get stuck into another episode, I have a few questions to ask you first. Are you getting the very best out of your life? Is your business or career exactly where you want it to be? Do you get anxious and worry about what may or may not happen next? Do you often struggle with change or find yourself procrastinating? Do you feel like whatever solutions you come up with to your problems, it feels like you're putting a band-aid on a hemorrhage? Well, my guest today is here to address those very questions. Damian Mark Smyth went from being a slave to his crippling obsessive compulsive disorder and overblown ego to becoming a free being. Free of worries, confusion, fear, and many other negative thoughts that kept him in his self-made prison. So, what does a man do once he has so much freedom? Well, come up with a solution to world peace, of course. Damian is on a mission that some may say is impossible. A mission impossible. Step aside Tom Cruise. Damian has helped thousands of business owners wake up to their own potential by tapping into what he calls an inside-out reality. He is also a transformational speaker and has taken up many stages, including the coveted TEDx platform. Damian is also the author of the critically acclaimed books Do Nothing and The Entrepreneur Success Formula, which discuss the thinking process behind successful behavior. In his latest book titled The World Peace Equation, Damian lays out the simple formula which he believes will change humanity. Damian, welcome to the show, and thanks for letting me pick your brain.
Hi Daniel, how are you doing?
I am awesome. This should be this should be a very interesting one. It's not every day that you get a guy on the show that says, "I'm looking to change the world and so solve the problem of world peace."
There is a twist in this, though. There is a twist.
Okay, all right, fine.
Like every good thriller, there's a good twist in it.
So let me ask you this: how are you feeling right now? Are you nervous to be on the show, or do you not feel any anxiety?
Well, you see, what would mean would be that I would be feeling my thinking as opposed to feeling any outcomes. So because I've gone on stage in front of thousands of people, I help people do that. So if you weren't feeling nervous, then you probably aren't human. But it's a question of what you do with that thinking. So if you're just about to step on a stage in front of thousands of people, or you're just about to perform in a sporting arena, or go on one of the best podcasts in history like this one, 26, I like it.
Baby.
Then you will have thinking. You will have thinking that will give you all sorts of scenarios. So, for instance, you step out on stage. Oh, what if I forget what if I forget my message, or what if I forget my lines, or what if I forget, or whatever. You kind of have a choice. You have these crossroads at every second, essentially, in your life, which is, do I go with that thinking, or do I see it for what it is? And essentially what I point people towards, because I'm a tour guide, I'm not a transformational coach or anything like that. I'm a tour guide. I'm pointing people towards truth. I show them that, well, once you see how your thinking works, you don't have to pay attention to your thinking. Okay, so your thinking is constantly giving you information. But the great thing about that word is information means it's not true, it's information. And the information at that juncture for every second of your life is this, because you can only have a version of reality via your thinking. You can only experience life because you have a thought first, and that thought is giving you information. So the information could be, for instance, what if you go on stage and make an ass of yourself? Okay,
Right.
Well, it could also be you've got a really exciting message to share here. You're alive. Yeah. What a great opportunity. Now, the problems in the world exist because we mistake what our thinking is telling us. Okay, so in any given moment, we have a thought about something. There'll be people now listening to this going, what is he on about? There'll be some people going, yeah, I get that. And there'll be others going, he's wrong. Now, what I'm saying is one thing, but there'll be 7.5 billion versions of that, bearing in mind there's 7.5 billion people on the planet, because we create our reality, and this is the crucial bit, from the inside out. Okay,
before we get into Inside Out, I want to ask you. So you probably cringed when I said in the intro, transformational speaker, right? Did that kind of cringe you up a bit? Were you like, oh, come on, seriously?
No. The only bit that I've ever cringed about is where someone introduced me on stage as the positive thinking guy, and I had to put him straight. I was like, no, I'm sorry. It's not about positive thinking. It's not about changing your thinking. This is the bit where people get it wrong.
Okay.
I don't tell people to change their thinking, right? Because that's basically you're on a hiding to nothing if you go down that route. Because I work with people who've been you would not want their life. Let's just put it that way. You would not want their life.
Right.
Things have happened to them which you would not believe is possible for a human being to go through.
Really?
And you tell these people to change their thinking, be a bit more positive, you'll likely get punched in the face. Okay? Now, the problem with that is if they can't do that, if they can't do the positive thinking, if they can't change their thinking, if they can't get to a juncture where they choose one thought over another, they feel like a failure and they go even further down the spiral, which tends to be what happens. What I show them as an alternative is that it's just thinking. Okay, if you see thought for what it actually is, and you don't have to do anything with it, okay, it's kind of like the clouds in the sky. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's sunny. You can't change the weather. Well, why bother trying? It's the same with your thinking. Sometimes you're going to get positive thoughts. Some days you're going to get negative thoughts. You don't have to do anything with your thinking when you see what it is.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because I'm assuming there are going to be people listening to this going, what are you talking about? What about Tony Robbins and all the other guys that say, get up in the morning and have affirmations and say, I'm great, I'm wonderful, I'm going to make X amount of money by this and this time. Like, changing your thinking to be positive. I mean, that's what pretty much all the big gurus out there are writing about and talking about, right? So here comes Damian, and he's saying no, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so before we get into this, because I really want to get into this, I think this is awesome. Can we find out a little bit about Damian first? I feel like our listeners want to connect to who you are as a person. So I want to actually just let the listeners know that I actually met Damian a number of years ago at a business event. You actually left an impression on me, Damian, because one thing you said to me after you spoke and I came up to you, you shared with me something very interesting. You said that you gave away your house. At one point, you had like a beautiful house and a really nice car and lots of possessions. And you one day decided, you and your wife, that you were just going to give it away. And I remember saying, what do you mean? You sold it, right? No, we gave it away. I said, what? What do you mean you gave it away? And you just tried to explain to me that you just gave it away because you wanted to be free. So can we go back to that and maybe share that and why, and maybe build up to, first of all, building up the wealth that you had and then why you decided to give it away?
Yeah, so my partner and I, we're still not married, unfortunately. We've got 2 children and a dog, but
okay.
We're working on the marriage.
You got to put a ring on it. Didn't hear that song? You didn't hear the song?
So we were helping people essentially do the Tony Robbins stuff, I guess. We were kind of helping people from what we would call an outside-in perspective. So it's get the car, get the house, get the get the money in the bank bank account, you'll be happy. That's where we were. That's kind of where we made our success, I guess. And yet we were feeling unfulfilled. It didn't make us fulfilled. And what's more, we were seeing our clients weren't fulfilled either. We were working with really unhappy rich people and really happy poor people. And we thought, wait a minute, no, this doesn't feel right. Now that's a really crucial thing. We'll come back to that later. It didn't feel right, and that information was telling us something about what we were doing. And go back a little bit further. In my previous marriage, I had been previously married with 2 kids. I now have 4 children to look after, which is great. I'm very blessed in that respect. Again, I wasn't happy in my relationship then, and I had a beautiful house in the country, and a seemingly perfect life from the inside out. Sorry, from the outside in, and it just wasn't. It just didn't feel right. Now that information was telling me something about how where my happiness was being created. So my happiness was not coming from the house. It was not coming from the car. It wasn't even coming from my wife or even my partner now. In fact, it's not even coming from my children. Right? My happiness is not coming from them. Okay. It's coming from me. And this is crucial to understanding how all of these processes work. When you talk about people like Tony Robbins and positive thinking coaches, some of what they're saying is pointing in the right direction, but essentially they're missing the crucial ingredient. And this is why essentially what I do as a tour guide is show people what the one ingredient. There is one ingredient that explains everything. One ingredient that explains everything. Why some of these stuff works, why sometimes it doesn't work. Because, the people that say goal setting, positive thinking, whatever, does it work for them every time? No, of course it doesn't. Well, why is that? And why does it work sometimes? But we'll talk about that later, because that's the crucial ingredient. But essentially, so my life was not working from the outside in. And I was lucky enough on February the 26th, 2011, to be in the right place at the right time, I guess, to hear something that didn't at the time make sense to me. The guy on stage said something, he actually said, it's not what you think, it's the fact that you think. And that sentence, because of where I was at the time, resonated with me to the point where, it stopped me in my tracks. And I went, what? That doesn't even make sense. What do you mean it's not what you think, it's the fact that you think? That's not even like common sense. What? It doesn't make sense. So I asked them about it afterwards, and it turns out that was a quote from a guy called Sid Banks, who was dead by this stage. He died 2 years previously, who had uncovered this thing called the 3 principles, which is essentially how we create our reality. But the implications of it is like where that reality is coming from. In other words, it's not coming to you from the outside; it's coming from the inside. And again, we'll kind of go into that in a little bit more detail later, but that's kind of the crucial element. And so I kind of went and started exploring this stuff, and again, it didn't really make sense to me at first. So if anyone's listening to this going, I don't understand that, you're in good company. Yeah. I really didn't get it at first, but then over the next couple of months, I did start to kind of get a glimpse of what he was referring to and pointing to, and as a result, I saw that my OCD and my depression was as a result of my thinking, but I was creating it.
How bad was your OCD? Just to paint a picture, because you're saying you were OCD. Some people, they like to say they're OCD because they like things in order, but how bad was it?
So I would, when I walked out of a room, depending on what my thinking was telling me, I'd have to turn the light switch on and off 7, 8, or 13 times.
Stop it.
Now,
are you joking?
Yeah.
Seriously? Why?
No, because I thought my family would die if I didn't do it.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Now this wasn't really that much of a problem when I was on my own, but when I was with other people, it kind of gave them a bit of a sense of this.
I'd be freaked out. Yeah. What the hell is the nutter doing? What's he doing?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
And again, and my depression, it would lead me to look for external solutions. So I would drink a lot. I would take drugs. I would, look at pornography. I would try and do anything to change the feeling that I had.
Right. So were you addicted? Would you say you were addicted to those things?
Well, I now know there is no such thing as addiction.
Yeah, I'm actually setting you up. I'm setting you up, Damian, because there's actually a chapter in your book which I read called "Do Nothing," and the chapter is on addiction. And so I actually wanted to bring that up. Maybe I want to bring it up a little bit later because I want to get in. I want to keep going with your story, but just so we know, I want to bring it up to our listeners. I find that quite controversial. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on why you don't believe there is any such thing as addiction. So, but anyway, I'll let you keep going with the story though.
We have a lot of things to put in our come back to column.
I know. Might need to do two sessions here, but let's see how we go.
So there I was, 2 months later, essentially I woke up and thought, wait a minute, I don't have to believe my thinking. Wait a minute, it's coming from me. I'm creating this thinking. And even though I had this massive compulsion when I went to the door, and all of this stuff was running through my head. It's like, if you don't do it, your family will die. If you don't do it, your family die. You'll be so guilty, all this sort of stuff. I thought, wait a minute, that's coming from me. It's not actually real. I don't have to do that. And I walked through the door and I kind of felt freedom for the first time in many years. And I just started to see every other area of my life where, I had this thinking that all of a sudden didn't make sense. I like to refer to a book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And he had a very similar experience where he saw this thinking in his head was just kind of this script that was kind of constantly going. He didn't have to pay attention to it. And this book is actually his journey. And as a result, he builds this multi-billion-dollar company by essentially ignoring this voice in his head. So,
oh my goodness, something just came in my head just now, which is actually really freakish, if you don't mind me saying. As you're talking, there's a movie that comes to mind. Okay, it's called A Beautiful Mind. And if anyone has watched that movie, first of all, if you haven't, you should. It's incredible. Russell Crowe, and it's about a guy who basically has he pretty much he sees people, he hears them, he sees them as if they're real, and it's based on an actual true story. And he had what's it called? Is it schizophrenia? Where they see whatever it was, but he saw people, and at one point he was a genius. So at one point in the movie, which is my favorite part, is where he kind of comes to the conclusion that one of the characters that he kept seeing that weren't real was a girl that never grew up, meaning that over the years she was always still a young girl, and it suddenly clicked in his head that he's seeing them, but they're not real. And the reason why I say it's freakish is because while I was kind of like preparing for this interview and I was kind of, doing a little bit of research on you, I was listening to the theme song to the movie. So it's like really funny. But anyway, I digress again. I'll let you keep going.
Happy accidents. I love it. Trying to think where we're up to now. Oh yeah, so then I kind of realized that I didn't have to pay attention to my thinking, and started to, I guess, see it in other areas of my life, and so I then deepened my grounding in this understanding of the principles. So, and I was quite lucky to come across a guy called Jack Pransky, a number of people that have written about this. They tend to be former psychologists, and they tend to be doctors in psychology or psychiatry that then come across this understanding and help people wake up to their own potential. So, for instance, I wrote it in the book, Do Nothing. Sid would say everyone has the potential. Everyone has health inside them. So everyone sitting in a mental institution right now is essentially healthy, but they don't see it.
Hold on, whoa! That's a massive statement to make, and I'm not going to let you get away with that. There are people listening to this who are either friends or family or people they know who are in mental institutions, and they'd do anything. They'd pay all the money in the world and do anything to get them out and to heal them. And comes along, some guy on the show saying, well, they're actually very healthy and there's nothing wrong with them. They just think they're nuts. I mean, that's quite... how can you say that in a way? I'm going to say that I'm going to play the role of the listener here, and I'm just going to kind of say what they're thinking. How can you say that? Okay,
so if you don't know how your thinking works, then as far as you're concerned, what you see as your reality is true. Okay, so I'll give you an example for the beautiful mind. So the difference between schizophrenics and everyone else is a schizophrenic believes every thought in their head. Now, you have thoughts in your head which you know are not true.
Right.
That's the difference. You can essentially make the choice between thoughts. Now, this is where the choice thing gets quite sticky, because it would be easy to jump on that and say, great, okay, well, in that case, it's just about choice, isn't it? It's like the only thing that you have actually control over is which thinking you choose. Well, that's great if you have that choice, if you have that ability. Because take it one step back, one step further. You don't get to choose the thinking that comes into your head, right? So now we are connected to an energy that makes us alive. And that energy has some sort of intelligence built in as standard. Okay, so when you cut your finger, for instance, you don't have to think about making it heal. The trees kind of know which color to turn in the seasons. They don't. It's just kind of, it's in there. It's in the system.
Okay.
Now, on that basis, we don't choose what thinking comes into our head. So you can wake up one morning and feel great, and the next morning nothing in your life has changed, but you can wake up and feel rubbish. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now, as I say, it would be really easy at this point to say, well, great, okay, well, it's just a choice thing. Well, that's kind of going down the positive thinking route. It's like, well, if you see that thinking coming into your head and go, well, I don't choose that thought. I'm not gonna latch onto that negative thought and follow that one. That would be great if we had that ability. Okay. The issue is not being able to choose, because sometimes we don't even get that power. The issue is to see that it's just a thought. There's nothing to choose. So, for instance, so actually, to take it another step further. So we feel our thinking. This is part of the principles. We feel our thinking. You have a thought, you have a feeling. Okay, that's part of the three principles. The three principles are very simply: is you're alive. You have this energy inside you that makes you alive. You have thoughts and you feel those thoughts. That's it. Those are the three principles.
Let's take an example here for a second. I'm in my bedroom, okay?
Yeah.
It's 2 a.m. I suddenly get startled because I thought I heard something downstairs. The thought of hearing something downstairs suddenly turns into, oh, holy cow, there's a burglar in the house, which then turns into a feeling, which is, my blood starts to boil, my whole body. I start to wake up, but my adrenaline kicks in. I jump out of my bed, right? My heart beats faster. Now, according to what you're saying, it's just a thought, so just ignore it, go back to bed, silly. Which probably 99% of the time you'd be right. But what about the 1% of the time when it's actually a burglar? And then I just go back to sleep, and suddenly he goes and, I don't want to say what he's going to do, but I've got my 9-year-old listening to this. But, how far can you take that?
So this is what's so great about what essentially I point people towards. I show people how the system works. I don't tell them what to do with it, right? So I kind of liken it. So I'll show you how the car works, but you drive it how you want, okay? So this is not a solution strategy. This is not prescriptive. It's descriptive. So I tell people how their thinking works, and they get to choose their life as a result of it. So, for instance, okay, so you're lying in bed, you hear something. Straight away, if you take one thought as real, you've essentially negated every single other possible outcome. So if straight away you think, oh, that's a burglar, okay, you may not be right, okay, but you've negated all the other options, which is, oh, I made it up, or it's a cat, or it's my, I don't know, whatever. You've negated all the other options.
My son's sleepwalking, yeah.
yeah. What tends to happen is we latch on to the content of our thinking, right? We latch on to what we've created, which is the thought, and we get a feeling from that thought. We latch onto that and say that's true.
You're saying we're too emotionally attached to our thoughts. Is that right?
Well, we attach ourselves to our thoughts, but there's two different types of thought. Sid Banks, who uncovered this, he said basically there's personal thought and universal thought. Okay, universal thought is wisdom; it's timeless. Personal thought is it's ego, fear, stress, worry, anxiety, overwhelm, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's fleeting. Thought comes and goes like the clouds in the sky. Wisdom is timeless; it's infinite. It comes from beyond us. Well, all thought does, but you know what I mean. It's like insight is something that needs no explanation. So it could be, right, that you're sitting in bed and you have an insight and you go, it's my son sleepwalking. But it feels different to the fear, it feels different to the anxiety, it feels different to the worry. Now, you could also have an insight which tells you what to do. It's got information in it. So it could be, oh, my son's sleepwalking. Oh, but I left the kitchen knives out on the kitchen table. I don't know. And you have like this insight that then turns into action.
Okay.
But the action will be from a place of flow, and it will be productive, right? So you'll go, I better sort that out. Get up, go downstairs, and guess what? There's your son sleepwalking towards a kitchen knife, and you clear it up. And then only afterwards you start thinking, oh God, what did I do wrong? Oh God, I'm never leaving the kitchen knives out again. So all the other stuff, the content of the thought, you then get sort of stuck in. And this is why when we take this into businesses, this is really, really productive, because basically what we're saying, we're showing people how their thinking works, okay? What they do as a result of that is they spend less time in content. They spend less time in, essentially, I think what one famous author said, I can't remember who it was, he said, I've had many a terrible thought, most of which aren't true, or have never happened. Or something.
That was tip of my tongue, but anyway.
Yeah. So, most people spend a lot of the time in their content of their thinking. Oh, how am I going to finish this project? Oh, what can I do about this? Oh, that person's really annoying me. Blah, blah. Content. Mm-hmm. As opposed to insight, which is flow, which is, it needs no explanation. It's the sort of thing that, in sports, they call it being in the zone. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, that's kind of what we're pointing to here. We're pointing to how the system works, and we're saying to people, once you understand how something works, you tend to kind of work with it better, in the same way that, if we show people how the principle of gravity works or the principle of mathematics works, and you understand that, stuff happens more easily. For instance, I use the example, if you get to the edge of a cliff and you don't have a parachute and you look down, it's a long way down. If you understand how gravity works, you understand that if you take that extra step, it's going to end in pain, right? You understand gravity, so you go, do you know what? That's not going to end well. Now, again, understanding mathematics, this is the principle of the universe upon which everything else relies. It helps explain stuff. You can pretty much explain anything through mathematics, which is why these principles are so important, and it seems so simple, but as Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it enough yet. We're alive, we think, we feel our thinking. It seems too simple to be true. It's like, oh my God, how can someone with no therapeutic background, with no psychology background, with no psychiatrist background, go in and help people who are suicidal, with PTSD, with addiction problems, with one conversation literally give them freedom from their thinking? How can that be possible?
Well,
because I'm pointing to something that's true.
Have you done that?
Yeah, constantly. I do it on a daily basis. The conversations I have with people.
So you've spoken to somebody who was mentally ill, clinically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And because of this concept that you discussed, they suddenly snapped out of it?
It's not a concept. It's very. This is why it's kind of counterintuitive. I'm not talking about a concept. I'm not even talking about a good idea. I'm talking about something that's true. If we talk about gravity, we're not talking about a concept. We're talking about a principle. If we talk about mathematics,
but isn't that just your opinion? I'm going to say, isn't that just your opinion, though? I mean,
well, let's get some agreement on this. Are you alive, Daniel?
I hope so. Yes.
Okay. Is that true?
Yes.
Right. Do you have thoughts?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel that thinking?
Do I feel it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. That's it's gone beyond concept now, right? There is no concept involved, right? Those are the principles. You're alive. You feel your thinking. You have thoughts. That's it.
But one second. But then the point
of what we're talking about here is that it's inside out, right? You're creating. So forget. You can call them whatever you want. Forget the concept stuff. Let's talk about what we're actually implying here. Okay. You create your version of reality from the inside out.
Okay. Right? What about a chemical imbalance? That's been proven scientifically that a person who has a mental illness has a chemical imbalance in their brain. You're now saying that, no, got nothing to do with it? I mean,
no, I'm not saying it's got nothing to do with it at all.
Right.
No, I'm not saying it. Yeah, I use the example is, if you drink a bottle of vodka, right? That's gonna have an effect on you.
Yes, it will.
Now, but your wisdom will tell you, don't get in the car and drive to the shops. Okay. Yeah. So yes, there are chemical imbalances, and there's lots of reasons for that. There's some genetics, some nutritional, and we're touching the tip of the iceberg in terms of this now. Mm-hmm. About how these imbalances occur. But what I've found is, when I've worked with people who, for instance, have been on medication, just by having a conversation about the nature of thought, within a couple of weeks, they have to go back to their doctor, and they've got symptoms of overdosing on the medication. And in other words,
Wow.
their natural healing is bringing them. It's kind of like holding a beach ball underwater. You let it go, it kind of naturally rises to the surface. We're essentially helping people's natural well-being come out by talking about what's true. That's the point about this. We're talking about what's actually true.
So you're saying that you can heal autism and other illnesses like that?
I've worked with parents who have autistic children, and yes, absolutely, the relationships improve dramatically when you start to point in this direction. Definitely.
And so let's just go, because we said we were going to touch on it as well, is addiction. I mean, there are probably people listening to this who consider themselves to be addicts, and they are, in a 12-step program which basically says once an addict, always an addict. You're powerless. You can't. There's no way out. You've got to be part of the program. You've got to kind of take your medication, so to speak, right? Otherwise, you will go and act out. You will go and drug yourself and go back to your addictive behavior. You're saying that's poppycock, as they say in England. What?
Yeah, I mean, what's the success rate for AA? It's between 7 and 11%, isn't it?
I have no idea, but okay.
Yeah, it is between 7 and 11%. So, what does that tell you about what it's doing for people?
Right. Okay. So let's okay, fine. Let's put AA to the side for a second. Take an addict. Okay, somebody who's a drug addict who is hooked. He can't control themselves. They have to take drugs. It's just not what. How do you get them? Can you give an example of a case that you've dealt with that they were addicted and you managed to get them out just by talking about this reality, we'll call it?
Yeah. So, for instance, I worked with someone who was in AA for years, and last year went to a wedding, had 2 sips of champagne on the toast, and then stopped.
Wow, that's wow.
Because they're now guided by wisdom. So, okay, the first thing to be absolutely clear on here, it's like no one is born an alcoholic. So, alcohol was only invented a few hundred years ago. So if people think that they've got this physiological reaction to alcohol, well, that must be evolutionary, and it's only happened recently. Mm-hmm. Babies are not born alcoholics. Okay.
Sorry, I just had a vision there, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, and of course, the other thing is, is when you give your power over to something, essentially what you're saying is that I am powerless, right? Mm-hmm. When you understand that the power is only coming from your thinking in the moment, but you're the one creating it. We don't live in an outside-in world. We live in an inside-out world. We live in a world where stuff happens, but our version of that will only come from one place. It can only come from us, which is why 7.5 billion people on the planet, 7.5 different versions of anything. You all show them La La Land, there's 7.5 billion different versions of how good it was. It's the same movie, okay? So this is the point. It's not that the life isn't happening. It's that we have to have an experience of it from the inside out. So go back to alcohol. So when you show someone how their thinking is actually working. So first of all, it's like, wait a minute. Well, the power's not in the alcohol. The power's in my thinking, or the power I'm giving my thinking. So in other words, I have this thought, I have a feeling, because we are great human beings, as far as we know, are the only living creature in the entire universe that can create a future that hasn't happened yet. So you have a thought about alcohol, you attach loads of feelings to it because it makes me feel better. I love that feeling of being out of control or whatever. It's like we attach, and then we have further thinking about that feeling. So it's like, well, I can either give the power to that thinking and say, well, I'd love to do that. I'd love to be out of control again. Oh, but wait a minute. But if I did that, I could lose my family or whatever. It's like we get on this roller coaster of thought. The problem with alcoholics or so-called alcoholics is that roller coaster of thought they think is a runaway car. Okay? And what they don't see is that they've missed the missing ingredient, which is, oh, it's my thinking. Now, if you know that's how it works, it's like getting to the edge of the cliff without a parachute, and you go, wait a minute, it's that gravity thing again. Well, if you see that it's your thinking from the moment to moment to moment, and you don't have to believe you're thinking, all of a sudden you've taken the power away from the alcohol. Guess where the power now lies? Okay. As far as power goes,
but if you know,
it's come back to you.
Okay, but Damian, if you know an alcoholic, right, then you would know that an alcoholic for years has gone through the same struggle, which is the thought of a drink, and then this uncontrollable pull feeling, like I have to have it or I'll die. And then he takes the drink, right, gets drunk, does all sorts of crazy stuff, wakes up with a hangover, feels like absolute crap in a jail cell. Wife divorces him, loses his kid, and each and every time he swears that's the last time he's ever going to do it. And he's so sure that he's never going to do it again. And yet, within 24 hours, he does it again. But how can you explain to someone like that it's just your thinking? Because he will slap you in the face. He'll be like, are you freaking kidding me? Do you know how many times I have been through that? And do you think I want to do it? I don't want to do it. But I do it because I just can't control myself. So what do you say to someone like that?
Well, so this is exactly what I do. And my brother is an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic, even though there is no such thing. My brother still goes to AA. He doesn't, we can't have a conversation about this because he doesn't want to know.
So he won't be listening to this show.
He won't be listening to this show. No.
Okay.
You can't make a blind man see. I don't say to people, it doesn't matter what the situation I'm presented with. I don't say it's just your thinking. Now because that would be crazy. What I do instead is I show them how their thinking works. Okay, so I tell them how thinking works, and sometimes they get really curious. Other times they're like, yeah, okay, got that. And then luckily if I'm fortunate enough, we get to speak again. And they go, tell me more about that thinking stuff, because that was interesting. I'll give you an example. So when I did the book tour for Do Nothing, we were down in Plymouth, and we met some recovering heroin addicts. And one of them, we kind of talked about this, and he just went, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I used to wake up every morning, and I really needed to get the skag. I absolutely had to get it. It's like I would die unless I got that skag. So I'd have like the shivers and the shakes, and I'd be sweating, and I'd get up and I'd go and like rob a shop, right? But he said, interestingly enough, as soon as I got the money in my pocket, I felt fine. Now I hadn't had any heroin, but I felt a lot better because the thought that I was going to get it was enough. And so he got what I was talking about. It's like, oh yeah, I'm the one creating my reality from the inside out. And now he's obviously on the street. He's helping, heroin addicts and recover.
That's incredible.
So this is what we're pointing to here. So now the great thing about this is we have the most powerful force in the universe to help us here. And most people don't understand this. This is why, people sitting in mental health or in mental institutions, this is why people that are struggling with alcohol daily, they don't have to struggle with it, because you have something that's there guiding you, which is what I point people towards, is their wisdom. Now, this is why a recovering alcoholic can go to a wedding, have 2 sips of champagne and go, I'm not going to have any more. It's why people that were struggling with PTSD or depression, or it doesn't matter what the symptoms are, it's the same solution. It's your thinking. It's coming from you. You are the one that's creating your reality from the inside out. And when you understand how something works, you get to be able to navigate the system more effectively. Again, I don't show people how to drive their car. I just show them how the car works. And some people do it effectively, some people less effectively. But what I've seen is, for people that have been written off by society, or that have been completely, let down by society, or have been tried, have had people trying to help them with techniques and processes and tips and all this sort of stuff, and it doesn't work, and they go, why this is not working? It's because it worked for them. It doesn't work for you. It didn't even work for them all the time. What they missed is the point. It's like, someone does something that supposedly helps that person. The only thing that's happened is they've had a change of thought. Right, their thinking has changed. Okay, that's, again, it comes back to the process, how the process works. So, people like Tony Robbins, great, love his stuff, but it's like a sledgehammer looking for like-shaped nails. I've seen the I'm Not Your Guru movie, and it's a painful
amazing.
watch, because there's like one bit where this guy's like freaking out in the corner. He's like, get the team on them. It's like, oh my God, go and change their thinking. It's like, you don't have to do that. It's like, this is why, sometimes positive thinking works, because it's like, if you change someone's thinking, they're going to feel better, because that's the way the system works. You feel your thinking. That's the point. If you feel a negative thought, you feel negative. If you feel a positive thought, you feel positive.
So what are you saying? Because, look, there are people listening to this, for example, that, including myself, where you wake up and you feel like crap. You're depressed. You just don't want to deal with the day. You feel down, and whatever happens, you just can't seem to just pull yourself together. You're just in a slump. So what do you do?
Nothing. Why would you?
What do you mean nothing? But don't you want to feel better? Don't you want to change and grow and improve?
Yeah. So do you know what I do? I let the system do the heavy lifting, because if I try and get involved, it doesn't go very well. So, and I know that because I used to try and change my state by positive thinking, or getting drunk, or taking drugs, or watching pornography.
But hold on, you're giving examples of negative.
Getting involved in the system. Now, what happens when you wake up? You look out the window, it's raining. Do you go out there and try and move the clouds along?
No, obviously not.
What do you do?
I either complain about the rain or I sing in the rain. Depends on the freaking mood I'm in.
Or you just wait for the clouds to clear.
Okay, all that.
Yeah. Now, if you spend all your time going to try and invent, weather-changing devices, guess where your energy's going? It's fruitless. It's the same with your thinking. I wake up, I still feel crap occasionally. Guess what? I don't do anything. I certainly don't go out and make any decisions based on the way I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. I get on the phone and start speaking to my favorite customers, is because I feel rubbish. The system's telling me about my thinking. The system is not telling me about my life. It's not telling me about my customers. It's not telling me about my friends and my family. It's telling me about me. It's like driving along in a car. You see the red warning light come on in your car. It's not telling you about everyone else's car. It's telling you about your car.
Why are you writing a book?
Why am I writing a book? Well,
it's a trick question.
The world peace equation is actually about what we've been talking about. It's because I saw an interesting TED talk recently about how there will never be world peace, because as human beings we are built to disagree with each other, and there will always be wars and battles, and the fact is, if everyone was kind of living at peace, we'd put all our energies into making sports much more, I don't know, whatever. It's like we are, and he's absolutely right. He was a social psychologist. We are not built to get along because we have different opinions. But what he missed was that peace is not an outside-in job. Peace is not reliant on your circumstances. Take Nelson Mandela. He was in jail for, 20 odd years. Never once did he feel a prisoner. Okay? Peace is what happens inside, not what happens outside. And the world peace equation is pointing the equation is a Trojan horse, because basically it's pointing people towards what's possible every single moment of every single day inside. We can be at peace no matter what's happening on the outside. We can be at peace.
Here's the scary thing, though, okay? And this is where I feel like I'm struggling, and I think possibly a lot of my listeners might be struggling, is if you're saying do nothing, which is the title of your previous book, then that means nobody will accomplish anything. In fact, you shouldn't even write your new book, right? Why are you even writing your new book? You should be doing nothing, right? Why are you writing it? Why are you on this conversation? Why are you on this show with me? You should be doing nothing. So how do you explain that?
So, for instance, when we were on the book tour, we had a lot of people coming up and saying, so what do you mean by actually do nothing? I don't mean do nothing as in action. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When you operate from a place of wisdom, you tend to be inspired. You do way more. When we take this into businesses, they do more with less. They are operating at their peak more often. It's not about doing nothing. It's about seeing that when your thinking is telling you about the state of your thinking, you don't react to it. Okay, so I'll give you a really good example.
So why didn't you call it Think Nothing?
No, because you need to read the book to understand why it is do nothing.
Fine.
You don't need to do anything. This is the point. You don't need to do anything. When your when your thinking is basically giving you information about the state of your thinking, it looks like it's giving us information about the state of the world. Okay, that's essentially, that's the paradigm shift. We shift from an outside in to an inside out reality. So, for instance, I use the example in the book. So, if someone sends you an email and you get annoyed, or you think you're annoyed by that email, okay, because you can't actually be annoyed by anything apart from your thinking. So, you go to respond to that email.
That's a very important point. I just want to stop there for a second. That's a very important point you just brought up. You just said that you cannot get angry, you cannot be happy, you cannot get emotional, you cannot feel anything without thinking it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So someone walked up to you right now and punched you in the face, you couldn't get angry? I mean, you would get angry, right? You would.
There are infinite responses to that. You could be curious. Why do they do it? You could be thinking about something else, like, I don't know, perhaps your dog just died, and they could punch you in the side of the face, and you could be thankful. I don't know. It's like this is the point about what I'm saying. What I'm talking about is descriptive, not prescriptive. I don't get to tell you what to do with it, which is why it's anti-self-help. Because self-help basically says, I need something outside of me. What we're saying here is you have it already. It's already inside of you. So I don't know what you're going to do, if you get involved in a car crash. I don't know what you're going to do if you get cancer. The point is that life is neutral. Life doesn't have an opinion. The only opinions are thought. 'Tis nothing either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. This is the point. Everything has to happen via a thought, which is why Sid called it the missing link. It's the bit that we've missed. It's like, you can't have a version of anything unless your thinking is involved. So someone punches you in the side of the face, there are infinite ways you could respond to that. But I'm going to tell you which one is right or wrong. Your wisdom will probably tell you. You know what? I would certainly be curious about why the hell they did it. But they could be doing to wake me up. You just don't know. This is the point. And this is what's so great about this, is essentially we're giving the power back to the person as opposed to saying that it's coming from outside of them, which is why, when we work with people who think they're addicted, it's like all of a sudden they go, wait a minute, it's my thinking, it's coming from me. And, people start to realize that, well, okay, well, hold on a minute. How can I be addicted to something? Well, was I addicted as a baby? Maybe there is some sort of physiological change that happens more in me than others, but I still have the power when I see that it's my thinking involved to follow my wisdom. This is why that guy was able to take 2 sips and go, do you know what? I don't want any more. Because all of a sudden he had the power because he saw how the system works. So all we're doing is we're waking people up to their own potential.
Give some examples, because obviously this is a business show, and a lot of the people listening, they're running a business or they're looking to start a business. How would that play out in business?
Okay, so this is such a great example. So people who started a business, now in general, most people that started a business had some sort of thought. And usually it's like at a time in their lives when there was massive upheaval, and they went, do you know what? I'm going to start a business. Now, everyone around them was probably saying, you're crazy, don't do that, nice safe job, why would you do that? Think of your kids, blah, blah, blah. And they just went, do you know what? This feels like the right thing to do. Okay, so that, straight away, we're talking about, well, what was different with that thought? Well, do you know what? It felt different. My personal thought, the content of my thought afterwards was like, it was having kittens. It was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? But they knew it was the right thing to do. Now that straight away is like wisdom versus personal thought. So what I talk about is like the nature of thought, which is why that sentence is not what you think. The fact that you think actually made sense to me afterwards. It resonated. It's like, it's not my thinking, it's the fact that I'm thinking. That's what it was pointing to. So, but there are, many examples of people that have thoughts that they can't explain. They might have a thought about a friend, and then that friend calls them. It's like, well, what's that? Where's that coming from? I don't know. There are plenty of examples where people know the decision is right, even if all of the evidence is pointing to the opposite. But they go, do you know what? It's gut feel, it's intuition, it's something beyond my fear that I know is true.
How do you know?
What they're pointing to.
How do you differentiate between a simple thought and a piece of wisdom, an insight?
Again, to me, it's the feeling. This is how I differentiate it. The feeling's different. One of my students, I call them students. I mean, I help people kind of to share this. He had a beautiful description. He said, "Wisdom needs no explanation."
I like that.
I thought that was beautiful.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Someone called Elsie Spittle, who actually knew Sid, calls it a whisper from God.
And for those that don't believe in God, obviously it would just be a whisper from some unknown source. so I've left obviously the best to last here, just before we wrapping up. World peace. How are we going to get world peace?
So as I kind of alluded to, the twist in the tale is that there essentially is, well, there's two things. First of all, from an outside-in perspective, we will never get world peace because of the nature of the human being. We will never always get along. But the point is that everyone in the world can be at peace, and that's really the twist. Now, the kind of the second twist to that is that ultimately we have to be perfect already. And I say, whether you believe in God or not, we're here. If you want to believe in miracles, just look around you now. How the hell did this all happen? We're here. There's something at play here. You call it the infinite intelligence of the universe. Call it fourth dimension, essence, whatever you want to call it. There's something going on here. We're involved in something. We don't know what it is, but something's happening.
Right.
The fact that it is means it's already perfect. So there's nothing to change. We are already perfect. So that's kind of like the second twist in the tale. So, but essentially all I'm doing with the world peace equation is writing, which is, my calling to write more about this, to point people in the right direction, so that more people get in a conversation like this one. So, well, what do you mean by that? Well, what does that mean? And some people it will resonate with. There'll be some people listening today that will go, 3 principles. Now that's interesting. I'm going to look at that. Now, as a result of that, their world will change. And everything in their world will change. Other people will listen to this and go, do you know what? He's talking a lot of rubbish. Now, great. I have no problem with that as well. Other people will listen to this and go, I know all that already. Now, they've probably missed something.
No, but look, to be honest with you, Damian, if you do think about it for a little bit, I mean, when I think about it, I think back to like a sport or something that I did where when I thought about it, I didn't do well. But when I didn't think about it, when I let go and I kind of just, I'll give you an example. I like to play tennis, okay? So the best games I've ever had, without doubt, have been the games where I can't explain it. It's unexplainable unless you've been through it. And I'm sure everybody here listening has been through this at some point in their life. But you just get into this place called the zone where there's no thinking at all done in that place. It's pure I don't know what to call it, energy. It's just flow of energy, and it's just every single hit of the ball is perfect, and it's just boom and boom and boom, and I'm like, I am unstoppable. I don't care who the hell, Serena Williams, watch out, whoever's on the other side of that court is going down. But then there are times where I'm having a frustrating game and I'm thinking about, well, if I stand like this and if I hit it like that, and then there's the thought of, oh, the guy's such an idiot, look at, he's gloating, he loves the fact that he's beating me, oh, I'm going to get him back, and all these thoughts just going back and forth, and I end up losing and having a bad game. So there's definitely, like, for me at least, for those of you listening that maybe aren't 100% in agreement, but to me, I at least take that one example and I say, well, that makes sense, right? That thinking, that lack of thinking and just pure flow is the most powerful I've ever been. And
okay, so let me just ask you a question.
Yeah.
This is based on the do nothing. What did you have to do to get to that state?
Nothing.
Bingo.
Yeah. Right.
Sid used to say, point yourself in the right direction and do nothing. That's really what this is about. Now, the great thing about the system is designed to help us. It's designed in our favor. So look at kids, for instance, and they've done MRI scans of like children under 4. They're in a constant state of meditation. right? Samuel Harris said in his book, Waking Up, children are ceaselessly buffeted by joy and sorrow. You see them, they experience their thinking, but they're doing it in a meditative state. They're just like happy and then sad and then miserable and then happy and delighted and delirious. And they're living life to their full potential. Now, that's what's on offer for all of us. But guess what gets in the way? The daily nonsense in our head that we pay attention to. And that's what we're pointing people back to. Any practitioners of the three principles, that's all we're doing. We're tour guides. We're showing people what's available, what's on offer, when we understand that our thinking is just thinking. We don't have to pay attention to it, but we are feeling our thinking. This is the process is very simple. We're alive, we think, we feel our thinking. It's coming from us, though. It's inside out. It's always coming from us. And when you see how that works, you just have this opportunity by doing less. This is what's so great in business about this, is like we're taking stuff off their plate. Yeah. So you get someone who's like a NLP trainer, for instance, going in and giving sales teams more to do by changing their thinking, by getting into a positive state, all this sort of stuff. If they're busy, right, they've already got a lot of stuff on their minds, and it's innocent. This guy's basically going in and saying, right, do more, right? You've got to remember this stuff. That ain't going to end well, okay? What we're saying is no, and all the trainings we do are they're very kind of laid back. They're very much like, we're taking stuff off your plate. We're giving you less to do, not more. Oh, okay, well, that sounds quite interesting. Senior leadership team, senior management team. So we're giving you less to do, not more. Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So then we show them how the system works, and they go, do you know what? Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And as a result, we've seen it. We see it day in, day out. As a result, people perform better because guess what? We're giving them less to do, not more. But they understand how the system works, and they understand, if they're in a situation and they got a bunch of thinking going on that they're reacting to, and they go, wait a minute, what did those guys say about? Oh, it was about. Oh, mate, it's coming from me. I'm the one. And then they get curious because all of a sudden they see that warning light going on in their car is telling them about their car, not the person they're talking to. And they go, wait a minute, I'm being fooled again by my own thinking. Okay, what's really going on here? And they then connect. We go into sales teams and we teach them how to do better sales. Guess how you do better sales? Better relationships. How do you get a better relationship?
Listen.
You connect with them. Yeah, you listen, absolutely. And what's listening with nothing on your mind? That's being present. So we're essentially teaching them how to be more present. You want to know how to be more present? Less thinking going on. That's how you become more present. Now, if you're giving them tips and techniques of how to become more present, what's going on? More thinking. It's counterintuitive. It's looking in completely the wrong direction. We call it a paradigm shift. When people start to get a whiff of what we're talking about here, they go, wait a minute. It's like I've been driving along in my car, but I've been using the rear view mirror and I've been going in reverse. No wonder it's like hard. You've just shown me there's this thing underneath it called the windscreen, and I can go in forward, and I've got all these gears and I've got turbo and all. This is great. This is so much easier. Yes. That's exactly it. That's what we're pointing people to. So the system is the key here. It's like, how does the system work?
Yeah, and what's amazing is that I would say some of the most powerful things that exist in the universe are love, art, and I guess in a way spirituality, right? And if you think about it, well, actually don't think about it. Love, there's no thinking done in love. You love someone because you love them. There's no thought. Why do you love your children?
Connection.
Because there's no. If I start trying to explain to you and give you reasons, then it's not real. I can't explain it to you. It's love, deepest sense of the way. I can't explain it to you. There's no words. Art or music. Art is, music and art, they go hand in hand. But when you're playing a guitar and you're just in it, you're in that zone. You're playing piano and you're just. There's no thinking. It's just you're just doing it. You're in the music. The music is almost in you, and you're in it, and you're just together. There's love, and I don't know. I'm sounding like a poet over here, but love is like this interconnectedness that's beyond, and so is art, and so is music, and so is spirituality. Like you try to explain God, you can't. It's just I feel God. I feel spiritual. We can go on forever, but we've got to wrap this up. It's been absolutely incredible. Damian, there are going to be some people that want to get in touch with you because they want to find out more about the 3 principles, and there are going to be people who want to get in touch with you because they want to punch you in the face and basically, curse you out and tell you that you're completely wrong. How do they find you?
I'm happy for both. It's my website is rethinkingbusiness.biz, biz. And if they're interested in the new book, The World Peace Equation, I've currently got a page up which is taking sign-ups for people that want updates on the book, which is worldpeaceequation.org. So rethinkingbusiness.biz and worldpeaceequation.org.
And those 2 links, along with all the other resources that we mentioned in this show, will be in the show notes. And if you want to see the show note, if you want to go to the show notes, just go to danielgefen.com/59. That's danielgefen.com/59. Also, if you're not part of my Facebook group, you're a loser and you need to be part of it. So sign up to it. And what you'll be able to do then is if you come into the Facebook group, I believe Damian, if he's not in the Facebook group, I'm going to get his ass in there. And you can pick his brain in the group as well. So, Damian, this has been truly inspirational. It's been absolutely incredible. I would say transformational, but that might not be the right word. Thank you so much for letting me pick your brain. Thank you to all my fellow brain pickers. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the day when I'll be picking your brain.
You've been listening to the Can I Pick Your Brain podcast. Inspiration without perspiration is like a tiger without teeth. So, to put these ideas into action, head over to danielgefen.com.